40th place in the BFL. Who cares about 40th place? Really? We're doing a recap video. You beat how many guys? You got 40th out of what? But there were 206 guys, got 40th. And this video is not really about the tournament too much because there's not really a whole lot to learn from how I caught them, because 39 guys would probably tell you a better way to catch them than I caught them. But I really had a bad practice. Like, really bad. Like, the first day, I snagged one in the tail. I caught one that was maybe a keeper. And then I had a 3-pounder and like a 5-pounder. And that was in like a, whatever, almost a 12-hour day. So, full day on the water. And you can't really bank on snagging another fish in the tail. That's the first time I think I've done that since 2017 on the same bait, a lipless. And there's something to that. When they're not biting it and you're hooking them in the tail, you're either working it wrong. It's probably not the color that's throwing those fish off if they're somehow getting it in their tail. Maybe there's just fish there and you're not fishing for them correctly, so you're running it over their back and they try to swim away and you hook them in the tail. However, I catch 4 fish, including the snagged fish the first day. The second day, I think I had 2 fish. So I had a really bad practice. It was horrible. I had nothing going. So what do you do when you have such a bad practice? You're really on nothing. You can't just go back to those fish because there really weren't that many fish there. You probably caught the only one off of most of those spots. So I have a strategy. It's be very patient and figure out a way to catch you a fish or two, and then gamble the rest of your day, if you can catch a fish or two, on some bigger fish places with some bigger fish baits. So that's really what I do. I'm not go finesse when I'm having a really tough tournament. I go the other direction. I tie on bigger baits and I fish for just big fish. And that's always seemed to work for me. Well, not always, but it has worked before. So I knew there were some fish spawning, which I've never fished for spawning fish in February, but we had an 80-degree day. And any time in my life there's ever been an 80-degree day, fish are going to come to spawn if it's in the springtime or the winter, whatever season we're in. But it was 80 degrees. A couple days before the tournament, we had all the nights in the 50s, so I knew there would be some fish that were crazy enough to try to spawn. And look at this, for $3.99, I don't know if you can see that price tag, $3.99, get this bag of worms. And this is a good worm for the pre-spawn. It's got this tail on it, so it gives a little bit of vibration. And I covered about 2 miles of an area where I know they spawn, and I just fished as fast as I could, dragging a worm around. And I thought if I did enough covering water, I could get a bite or two. And that's what I did. I caught a keeper and one close to about 4 pounds, and that took me about 5 hours. So then the other 4 hours of the day, I could just go and fish for big ones. So I got near the main river channel where I knew there were some fish that were coming out of their winter pattern to show up pre-spawn, or maybe I'd already been there for pre-spawn. And I threw a lipless. I mean, this is as meat and potato simple as you can do it, especially on Lake Guntersville, but this is a big fish bait and you don't get a lot of bites. So my logic on that is if I do get a bite, it's going to be a big one, and I don't have to worry about not catching anything because that's kind of par for the course. Most of the time you don't catch anything, and then you get one bite every hour. So I had 2 fish in the well at 12:30, and I'm thinking, okay, we have, or maybe it was 12, so I had about 3.5 hours to catch 3 more. I ended up having 2 flurries, and I caught another one. So I pulled up out on the main river, caught one, and I set my standards really low. I think we all want to have high standards when we jump in a tournament, but just because you've had a bad practice, just because you've had a bad morning, it doesn't mean that everything's going to work exactly how you want it. You're not going to go out and catch a fish every 30 minutes throughout the day always. A lot of times you're just going to have 2 fish at 12:30, and you got to just be focused on catching number 3 and not number 5. So I was like, all right, dude, talking to my partner, you worry about catching 1, I'll worry about catching 3, and that's all we got to do for the rest of the day. And then when that happened, then we bumped the goal up to let's catch 4. So I pulled into a little creek, hadn't fished any of these spots. This was all new water. I catch 2, was very fortunate. Kind of settled down since I had a limit. Went back out to the main river, fished for big ones, and had another flurry where I caught 2 on like almost back-to-back casts. Culled out 2 of my smaller fish, ended up with 16 pounds, 11 ounces, and showed you all the baits. This is it, 3/4 lipless, 1/2 ounce lipless. It's good to have both sizes. If you have the fish that are bigger than 3 or 4 pounds swimming around in your lake, don't be afraid to throw that big one. The 1/2 ounce one is always good, rather. And speed worm. Spawning fish are easy to catch. If you don't know what to do, this is a good fallback pattern. Spawning fish, they don't move around a whole lot. They're kind of locked in on one place, and they typically spawn in kind of small groups. So if you get around a little spawning area, you can pick off a couple. So in a really tough event, you got to mix in different patterns. There's typically not just one thing that you can run all day. I think the lipless pattern was good for maybe 3 or 4 bites, 5, 6 bites all day if that's all you did. That's a real gamble. The spawning thing just seemed more consistent. There wasn't really a window on that, I don't think. I think if you drug it over a bed, you'd catch one. The lipless, winding it around deal, casting, moving bait deal was more so later in the day. So those last 3 or 4 hours, you could get some bites doing it. You might have wasted the whole morning not catching anything, but you got to sometimes fish conservative. I'm not saying you got to go out there and drag a Ned rig around to catch 6 pounds. You sometimes have to fish most of your day doing something conservative to just get a few fish in the boat, and then you can gamble the last couple hours. You don't have to gamble the whole day, and you don't have to be conservative the whole day, but you sometimes have to break chunks of each, put them together, have a good day, cash a check, and that's what this is about. You got to be scooping up checks at the end of the day. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you on the water.